Hi there, my name's Rachel Stern. I'm the founder and managing partner of GovTech Ventures. We're back for another weekly GovTech go-to-market video. This week is about grants. Grants can be one of the best things that ever happens to a GovTech company. They can also make your business much harder to invest in because they introduce uncertainty into your revenue. And if you're building in GovTech, they're impossible to ignore. About 36 cents of every dollar states spend come from federal grants. That's an enormous amount of money shaping what governments buy and when they buy it. As an investor, I'm generally cautious about companies whose customers can only buy the product because grant funding exists. Grants are unpredictable, political priorities change, administrations change, programs expire. If your customer stops buying when the funding disappears, your revenue becomes difficult to predict, and predictable revenue is one of the most valuable things in GovTech businesses. But that doesn't mean founders should ignore grants. In fact, I think some of the best GovTech companies use grants as part of their go-to-market strategy, just not as their whole business model. The grant gets them in the door. It helps an agency adopt a new technology that otherwise might not fit into the operating budget. And the goal is to prove enough value that the agency continues funding the project whether the grant is still there or not. Another thing founders often overlook is that grants are one of the clearest signals you'll get about where governments are headed. Grant programs don't just provide funding, they reflect political priorities. Whether those priorities are coming from Washington or your state capital, grant programs tell you what policymakers are trying to accomplish. If your product helps agencies achieve those outcomes, don't just sell your software, help customers identify funding sources, help them position the project around the goals of the grant, and help them bring in new dollars to their organization. One strategy I like is using the grant to subsidize adoption, not fund the entire contract. Even in year one, try to structure the agreement so part of the spend comes from the grant and part comes from the agency's operating budget. Why? Because you've already started the budget transition before the grant expires. When the grant runs out, you're asking the customer to replace a portion of the funding, not all of it, and that's a much easier conversation. It also creates a much more durable business. Grants are a phenomenal tool for helping agencies solve problems that they might not otherwise have budget to tackle. But if you're building your company around them, don't wait until the grant expires to think about long-term funding. The best grant strategy isn't just winning the first contract, it's structuring that contract so if the grant goes away, there's already a plan to replace those dollars with operating budget instead of losing the customer altogether. More next week.